inspiring authors, publishers, and artists from all around the world. Nashr News is the first platform in the Arab region dedicated to sharing news and updates of the publishing industry and literature worldwide. With our content published in Arabic, English, and French, Nashr's aim is to bridge the knowledge gap between different nations via the love of literature and exchange of best practices. I am Farida Walid, and I'm very excited to welcome our special guest Ahmed Masoud, who is the author of the novel Vanished: The Mysterious Disappearance of Mustafa Oda. He is a writer and a director who grew up in Palestine and moved to the UK in 2002. He is also the founder of a Daytona dance theater in the UK. Welcome, Ahmed, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell us a bit about your journey in the literature field and how did you start?
Sure. So, just again, my name is Ahmed Masoud. I'm a Palestinian writer from the Gaza Strip. I grew up in Gaza, lived there most of my life, and I moved to London back in 2002. Which seems like a long time since then, but I go there very often. I've got my family there, my parents, my siblings, and everybody are still there. The reason I've gone into this field is because I actually studied English literature in Gaza for my undergraduate degree. So I studied Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, Jane Eyre, all of the kind of classics. And it was a really interesting field to be studying English literature in this tiny strip in Gaza, which is often associated with conflict and sort of other things, as we've seen recently. But I chose that field because I lived in a very small place. I lived in a refugee camp most of my life. I wanted to explore a new world through books, and I wanted to kind of travel outside of the Gaza Strip through books and literature. And then in 2002, I decided that actually I want to study English literature in the motherland. So I moved to London to study in London. I did a master's degree in English, and then I followed it with a PhD, and I wanted to be an academic and a literary critic. I wanted to be the next Edward Said or something. But I didn't quite like academia, actually. I preferred literature, preferred the creativity and the freedom that literature and writing gives you. I remember my first time going to an actual theatre here in London, in the West End. It's called the Royal Theatre Haymarket. I was working there actually. And in Gaza, we didn't have any theaters as like theater venues. And it was amazing. It was incredible to see the actors on stage, the stories, the dialogue, the music, even the auditorium, the seats, everything was just so exotic. I was besotted by it, I was just, yeah. And I thought, actually, this is what I wanted to do.
Indeed, a very inspiring journey, I must say, coming all the way from Gaza to London. So you direct and write plays as well as novels. So which one of these are closer to your heart, writing or directing? And what prompted you to start directing?
If you ask me what I like and what I enjoy directing more. I think directing is more collaborative. You've got people, you've got actors, cast members, you've got designers, lighting designers, costume designers, technicians. You've got people to boss around, basically, and just become, like shout at when you need to. But I think it's more collaborative. You get ideas and like you explore ideas, you bash ideas together. I think that's what I enjoy. What I like is different though, because I like writing on my own. As I said, I like just to be in a different world. I love going into different new cities, exploring new cities, and just sit there with my laptop and music, sitting in a busy place. I like to write in a busy place, in a cafe, in a restaurant, and sometimes in public places such as like tourist hotspots. I remember writing one of my plays. I was in Athens at the time, and I was sitting underneath the Acropolis and in a restaurant. It was so noisy, full of tourists, but it kind of makes me really focus and kind of create that space. It's almost like a portal to a different world, which I really enjoy.
So how did the transition from Gaza to the UK impacted your writings?
I think really being in a different cultural environment, being away from home, gave me a bit of distance, and that is how it impacted my writing. Really, when I look at Gaza now, and I look at my culture, and I look at myself and my name and my identity, I see it differently from where I saw it before. I see it special, but yet at the same time, I see the faults and the mistakes and the negatives. I see the positives and the negatives, and I try to kind of capture both, really. One of the things that I try to do in my writing is to present my society and my culture as a normal society and as a normal culture. We've got the good and the bad, and then the great and the awful, you know. It's not a romantic, perfect, ideal society, because such thing doesn't actually exist anywhere.
I agree. That's very interesting. So tell us more about your novel, The Vanished and Mysterious Disappearance of Mustafa Auda. Talk to us about the preparation and research for this novel and how it was received across the world.
Sure. So I wanted to write a novel that really captures the cultural kind of representation of Palestinians living in Gaza. I wanted to write a book that will take people and readers to Gaza and leave them there for a bit. As you know, Gaza is under siege. It has, it's not easy for people to go and visit. There is no airport. They're not surrounded by checkpoints and borders, etc. But I do believe, like when I was studying English literature, when I was a student in Gaza, I wanted to use the same technique and the same mechanism for people to read and be transported over there. The story talks about a boy, he was born in the 80s, whose father disappeared mysteriously. And when he became 8 years old, he makes it his mission to find his father. He thinks that he's old enough now, as 8-year-old boys do. They think they know everything. And he goes on a journey to find out what happened to his father. Of course, this is set under 3 decades. So it starts in the 80s, it goes to the 90s, and it ends up by 2014 almost. So it tells the modern history of Palestine and Gaza through the eyes of this little boy. But it's not about the politics or the conflict, and it's not anything to do with that. It's a coming of age story, because you see Omar in the book growing up, coming of age. He becomes a young man, and as he becomes a young man, he discovers what's happened to his father, and it's not what he expected. It's something completely different, and it's the sort of thing that the truth will either free you or torment you. I think the reader will decide when you there's a lot of twists and turns, and then he finds out what happened to his father only when he is about 21 years old or something. But it is a complete shock to him, and I can't say, because you have to read the book. When you read the book, the names of places are important, the smells, the food, the kind of basic stuff that any society has are really important. In terms of how the novel has been received, I think it's been received really well across the world. It's been translated to several languages, to Italian and Spanish, and continues to receive really excellent reviews. It's been about 6 years now. I've got my second novel coming out later this year, so we'll see what that happens. And then
the story is such a beautiful story, and I recommend everybody to read it. It's very beautiful. So you mentioned that your second novel is going to be out soon. Can you tell us anything about it?
Sure, yeah. It's with the publisher at the moment. It's all finished, all done, all editing complete, luckily. It's actually also set in Gaza, but it's slightly different. So it is a crime fiction. So it's imagine a traditional crime story, an Agatha Christie, Poirot type, story set in Gaza.
What's it called?
It's called Come What May. And it's about a woman in Gaza whose husband was killed in 2014. And everybody blamed sort of like an Israeli airstrike for it. But she was convinced that it wasn't an airstrike. It was a fellow Palestinian who committed the crime, just like any other crime. So she goes on a journey to find out who killed her husband and why. And as she does, she discovers a total new world about her husband, which she didn't know before. And again, this is the only thing I can say right now. I can't say more, you know. I do like that sort of mystery thriller kind of style to stories, to telling stories, because it's a vehicle that you basically tell the story and tell a lot of other things about it. So crime fiction, if you read Agatha Christie, for example, I mean, I'm saying Agatha because there are way better writers than her in crime fiction, but if you read that, it's less about the crime itself, and it's more about the society and the individuals and the class system and the conflict between individuals. It's a complex kind of presentation of society. So that's what I tried to do as well in Come What May. I had some, you know, the book is not out yet, but I had my editor reading it, and she loved it. And that's rare for editors to say. Editors don't say that they like a work, because they always hate the work because they have to do some editing on it, you know.
Yeah. Can't wait to read it and can't wait to put our hands on it. So do you have a specific date for the release, or not yet?
Not yet, but it's likely to be in December, yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So who are your favorite writers or books? And these books or authors play any part in your books or style of writing?
Sure. I mean, one of my favorite ever writer is a Spanish writer called Carlos Ruiz Zafón. He wrote an excellent book that I recommend everybody to read called The Shadow of the Wind. It became an international bestseller about 5-6 years ago, translated to so many languages around the world. And it's a simple story, well, simple but complex, and it's about this boy who basically finds a book, and this book, somebody's looking to destroy it. Somebody's trying to get the book from that boy and burn it, and so the boy wants to know why this book needs to be burned. But within that, he tells a complex tale of Spanish history, the Civil War, the history of Barcelona. You know, all of the book is set in Barcelona. In fact, all of the writer's works, he published about 7 or 8 books. They're all set in Barcelona, and I kind of like that, because, and that's what I'm trying to do with Gaza in a way. It's just sort of like, actually, I'm not going to go out of there, not because I want to be pigeonholed as a sort of Palestinian Gazan writer, but no, actually, because there's so much in that place that I want to tell you about. And it's about basically becoming global through telling a local story, you know.
Literature can actually make you live the place even before going to it.
Exactly. It's very vivid in your mind, and it's very, incredibly, because it's imaginative, because you build a picture yourself, you build an image. It's not something you see on TV. It's not a travel documentary. It's not, you know, David Attenborough doing a nature program. It's something you build within your mind. And when you go there and you see that place that you imagined, and you see it's quite close to your imagination, it's almost like a success story. It's like, wow, yeah, exactly how I imagined it, you know. Or a disappointment. It's like, oh no, this is even worse, you know.
So I would like to ask you, the younger and future generations are likely to know about the Palestinian cause. In your opinion, what can be done to educate them and combat the huge influence of the media?
I mean, I think, again, it's the same thing. It's reading the books, reading the literature, reading, you know, connecting with people and the stories from different sides of Palestine, from writers, from poets, etc. We've got some great writers. For me, as a writer, I think I would encourage people to also write about it. You know, just write and share with your friends whatever you've learned, whatever you've connected with, whatever you found really interesting. Try to connect, try to educate yourself, and then write more about it. Spread the awareness, because this is the only way that people would know about the situation. I think for me, you know, Palestine is a struggle for not just the Palestinians, but for a lot of people around the world who believe in human rights and justice. It's a struggle that we should all support, you know. And I think at some point people will, and they've started. We've seen it in the recent events where people are now beginning to take a turn and to join the right side of history. And that is not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about basic human rights, to say that people should be treated equally. So I think start with basically reading the literature, educating yourself, and then connecting with people. Now we've got social media spreading, so connecting with people on the ground there in Gaza and the West Bank and inside, and just hear their stories. You don't have to do anything. Just read their tweets, read their Facebook posts or Instagram stories. These are important things. These are the ones that are telling it as it is and as it happens.
So maybe literature with the Palestinian sphere has always been used to remind people of the suffering of the Palestinian people, and rightfully has carried the cause across the globe. But do you feel that at the same time this has also constrained Palestinian writers in their topic and story?
Possibly. I mean, do you mean that through the kind of like having to feel that you really need to write about Palestine, or that weight over the shoulder? I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think the best example I can say here is that Mahmoud Darwish has always been asked that question of are you a writer or a freedom fighter? And I think his answer has always been, I am both and none. I think I write, it's up to you what you decide who I am. I don't write to be pigeonholed into a certain sort of category or definition. That is entirely up to the reader. Once I create the work, once the book is published, it's not mine anymore. It's the reader's, book. So I wrote a play on various, two plays which are not on Palestine. One of them was set in Syria, the other was set in Afghanistan. And still people call me the Palestinian writer. The Palestinian writer's new play, that is their choice to call me that, and I'm proud of, and I want to be called that. I don't mind it from it.
Great. Can you tell us more about the Daytona dance theater?
Sure. So it started back in 2005, and I wanted to create something different here in the UK, because Palestine was always on the news, but just only about the conflict, etc. And I wanted to create something a bit more kind of cultural. We've got great cultural productions such as dance. Debka. Debka is an amazing form of dance that is not really explored worldwide. Not a lot of people know about it. People know about belly dance, but not Debka. It's just really frustrating and sexist, to be honest with you, and Orientalist at the same time. And it really drives me nuts. And I wanted to create something to show to people what it is. So it started in 2005, and it developed massively because I opened it up to a lot of people from around the world, people with expertise and experience who had theater experience, dance experience, physical theater experience, visual experience, to come in and join that company and really lift it up to become a dance theater group. So it started as a Debka group, and then it became as a dance theater group. So we're doing full-on productions of theatrical productions and adaptations. To give you an example, we did an adaptation of Shakespeare's Henry V, done in Debka dance and modern dance, contemporary dance, and set in Palestine. Do you know what I mean? It's just like crazy ideas. It's like, let's push ourselves. Let's be as creative as possible. Unfortunately, I couldn't.
Very exciting. Thank you so much, Ahmed, for your time. It was lovely chatting with you and knowing more about you. And good luck on your new book. We wish you all the success, inshallah. And it was a pleasure to have you with us today.
A pleasure all mine, Farida. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, let's have another chat when the book is out, and maybe I can read from it as well.
Of course.
Yeah.